Yo people of YouTube, my name is Ishe Jindu and welcome to my channel, and today is week 2, series 2, video 1 of a whole new series. As you know, if you watched week 1, series 1, video 1 of my series I did last week, I'm planning on this month to be a week where I just roll out new series, try to figure out what I want to do with this channel, try to figure out what I like to speak about, how I like to speak about it, how I like to edit, and overall just map out the direction I want to take this channel. Last week on the first new series I rolled out, it was the weird and wonderful world of real estate. We went over pod hotels, which I encourage you to go to watch after this, before this, doesn't matter, watch that, watch this, watch everything I roll out. And that series will pretty much only focus on real estate, as is in the name. But as well, I'm also interested in other things: farming, reading, self-improvement, marketing, business in general. And as I said before, this isn't a real estate channel, it's a Zinyati Ishe Jindu channel. So I'll pretty much be covering what I like with new series for this, other series for that, just to get the ball rolling. So you know what I want to do. Eventually, when I figure out exactly what I want to be doing, I'll be having specific playlists for everything I want, and you can watch those. I'll also be rolling out a schedule so you can know what to expect and when to expect it. Today's series premiere will be an indulgence into my love of all things business, particularly marketing strategies and tactics. I'll be going over everything that has crossed my path and I found interesting, from books, from YouTube, from blogs, from university, and personal experimentation. Things I've just tried to better improve myself in my landscape. And these strategies can really be over anything, whether it's business, whether it's real estate, whether it's personal self-improvement, doesn't matter. You'll probably find it on the series. I'll be covering what they are, how they work, if they work, and who they work for. And I'll just tell you up front if I've used the strategy, if I haven't, if I have, how it worked for me, if I haven't, why I'm giving it a particular negative or positive bias of what I've read, so you can know exactly how I came to the conclusions of the conclusions I came up to. Cool? Alright. So all that's really left before we start off now is to dub this new series with an official premiere name. And for now, not sure that it's fixed, but the first one that came to my mind and I kinda liked was The Art of Conquest. No copyright associations with The Art of War, a book which we might be talking about in another whole new series down the line. Stay tuned, smash the like button, tap subscribe, and you'll find out. As it's scientifically proven that if you do so, you'll be supporting me and you'll be able to always pick up and stay tuned whenever I post something new. Alright, cool, let's go, cue the transition. Man, there's something about the Rocky move. Flawless in the first two, but even endearing through the questionable era of Rocky. But this entire series pretty much revolutionized, if not created, the underdog story. And I feel like nothing is as synonymous with the Rocky movies as is the training montage, where you come in a bum, you train it out, go through the school of hard knocks, and finally you have to face the stage, you're thrown into the fray, and you have to prove your mettle. And I feel like there is no better strategy that encapsulates this whole montage effect as is portrayed through the first strategy we'll be covering in this series, The Art of Conquest, Volume 1, The Big Book of Real Estate Strategy, Chapter 1, The Fix and Flip. A 3-part real estate strategy that involves buying a down-on-its-luck property, a bum, rehabilitating it and fixing it up, the training montage, and selling it, putting it in the ring. On the surface, the strategy seems very simple. You buy a property that's down on its luck, doesn't look too good, needs a lot of fixing up. You renovate it, you fix it up, you make it beautiful. You throw it in the market and sell it for a lot more than you bought it for. Basic business, basic capitalism, makes sense, right? Yes, but there's a whole lot of nuance and technicalities that goes into executing a fix and flip correctly, which is exactly what we're going to be covering in this segment. You can pretty much set up the requirements for executing a successful fix and flip into 2 phases. Phase 1, the entrance stage, that's pretty much focused on identifying and evaluating a wedge, and that involves finding a viable property, identifying what makes it viable, and making an offer on the property. After that, there's phase 2, the exit, where you now have to realize and utilize the wedge that made you go through with this deal in the first place. And this involves financing the property, profitably renovating the property, and finally selling the property. And then you get to walk off into the sunset with a huge bag of money behind your back. For now, let's put a pause on phase 2 and focus on phase 1. But before that, since both phases hinge on the wedge, I think it's important that I cover what that is. Pretty much, a wedge or wedge deal, when it comes to real estate, is basically the value you see in a property less the value you actually pay for it. So let's say in your eyes as a real estate investor, you go out into the market to look for a property and you find a property with a sticker figure of 800,000. But in your head, you do the math, you know the market, you figure out this home is actually worth 1.5 million. Since I'm not good at math and I'm not going to pause this video, your wedge would be this amount. To go into it more technically, I've personally realized there are pretty much two forms of wedge. One being a direct financial wedge, which occurs when you only factor in the sticker price and the immediate resale value that you've identified in your head. Then there's also the rehabilitation wedge, which occurs when you factor in the sticker price, but then you're factoring in the estimated wedge according to renovating the property. To give practical examples of the two, let's say it like this. For a financial wedge, let's say you buy a house that has a sticker price of 800,000, but you know in the market, if you waited long enough, you could immediately find someone to buy it for 1 million, 1.2 million. We're not talking about the rehabilitation wedge. You're saying, you know in its current state, if you were to sell it in the market, it's worth 800,000. If you were to fix it up, renovate it, paint it a new color, remove the carpet, you know it could get up to 1.3 million. That's rehabilitation wedge. And the best case scenario for fix and flip practitioners is you find a property that utilizes both the financial wedge and the rehab wedge, which is a property that's worth 800,000. You know if you waited in the market and did absolutely nothing, it would be worth 1 million. But you know if you were to also go the extra mile, rehabilitate it a little bit of elbow grease here and there, and renovate it properly, it could reach 1.5 million. And now you know everything you need to know about wedge deals. Let's explain phase 1. To phase 1, part 1, identification. You're looking for a property that has wedge potential. A lot of people were in rocky situation. Not a lot of people can become rocky, but there are some rocky stories left untold. They're pretty much looking for a property that either through financial wedge is being sold way below its value, or via rehab wedge, a property that's not being sold its current value, but has a lot of room for profitable renovations that you can make, and that will increase the property's value exponentially. After that, you're evaluating exactly where the wedge potential is. This involves paying particular attention to the neighborhood, seeing what type of properties are found in this neighborhood, what they look like, and how much they cost for what they look like. For example, in a single neighborhood, are all the properties double-storied? Do all the properties have a swimming pool? Is there a particular color scheme they follow? And how's their general layout in accordance to architectural design, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, etc., etc. What you're doing through all this information is looking for that sweet spot where you renovate the property exactly to its maximum potential. Not under-renovating and not over-renovating, which can happen. This stage is just about knowing exactly where your wedge is and how to make use of that wedge. Finally, point 3, making an offer, which is pretty much where you want to maximize your financial wedge. Buying a property always involves a bit of negotiation, and when you enter that with intent to buy as a practitioner of the fix and flip strategy, you really are trying to buy this property for the lowest possible amount that the seller is willing to go, or to give you a bigger wedge, a bigger buffer to work with, and more profit if all goes well. And that covers phase 1, the entrance stage. It starts from looking for a fix and flip viable property and concludes at the negotiation table. Entering phase 2, which is dubbed the exit phase, is all about realizing and making the wedge tangible. So in order to do this, you need to cross the gray area where you've made an acceptable offer and now you're financing it. Just know in between making an offer and financing it is actually reaching an offer that's accepted. Financing a property for the fix and flip strategy is usually a lot different than financing a home you want to own. In most cases, opting for a mortgage isn't the best way to go about it. In most cases, you're opting for a short-term loan, which usually comes with a higher interest rate, but also avoids the problem of prepayment penalties from taking out a mortgage. Part 2 of phase 2 involves profitably renovating the property. As I hinted at below, there's such a thing as under-renovating and over-renovating. How much can you add to the property while still increasing its value? As I said with the single-story to double-story example, if you didn't make your property a double story, you might only get to a property that can be valued at 600,000. But on the other hand, if you decided to overdo it and perhaps make the property a triple or 4-story home in that neighborhood, you might not be able to get your money back. Because most people for that exact neighborhood won't find the appeal of a quadruple story property and won't buy it in relation to its value. So it's all about understanding the value cap of the property and exactly what's needed to get there and exactly what won't get you there. Renovating is pretty much the montage stage, and after that, all that's left is point 3, selling the property. Time to put your money where your mouth is and throw your property onto the market. Your property has to sell at a value that either equals the wedge potential you saw before or exceeds that. And something I think I didn't mention before is that your wedge value needs to account for the cost of doing your renovations. And after that, if all goes well and it sells at a realized wage, you pretty much get to walk off into the sunset, know you made a champion, and hold your bags of loot. And now you know exactly how the fix and flip strategy works. So now it's time for us to move to the next part and see if it actually works and what are the considerations you need to pay attention to. Let's go. Allow me to put the man before the myth, and though the fix and flip strategy is absolutely viable and really does work, there are a lot of considerations that need to be well managed if this is the strategy you want to go forward with. Pretty much I'm going to slow down the montage and talk about the actual nitty-gritties and school of hard knocks that goes into making a successful fix and flip property. So consideration number 1, finding a fix and flip viable property is usually not easy. A lot of people still think they can go out there, look for a foreclosed home, buy it super cheap, fix it up, put it on the market, and sell at a huge market. And they think this because before, in the housing crash, this actually did happen. But use the housing crash as an exception to the rule than an actual rule. The fact that they sold way below market value is simply not true. No bank or broker is going to willingly sell off their house at a huge loss. Consideration number 2, you live and die by the wage. This strategy is built on the absolute foundation of wage. Messing up your maths, your valuations, and your predictions will absolutely lead to your demise. As soon as you buy a property that doesn't have a good enough wage, you can't renovate it. And you're most likely going to end up under with a property you paid too much for, invested too much for, and now you can't sell it. And consideration number 3, profitable renovation and renovation budget. Down the line, I'm going to release a video talking about the best and worst renovations to do on a property. But for now, you pretty much have to realize there's such a thing as a great renovation and a terrible renovation. And picking between the two needs a level of expertise and is absolutely crucial. Just because someone like you would like a particular renovation doesn't mean the person who's actually going to buy the property is gonna like that particular renovation. And when it comes to renovation budget, I can't speak too in depth about it because I've never done the strategy yet. But from all the cases I find out, it's pretty much a case of have your budget multiplied by 1.5 or 2 times, and that's probably how much it's going to cost you. And if, and only if, at double the budget, you're still managing to get out of this with a profit that you accept, go forward. If not, it's probably not worth the risk. Consideration number 4, how are you going to finance this property? As I hinted at before, most people opt for short-term loans because essentially the fix and flip strategy is a very short-term strategy. People are looking to be in and out in under a year, and sometimes from even 4 months to 8 months is when they want to buy a property, renovate it, throw it in the market, make their money and leave. So a short-term loan allows that. A mortgage isn't always favorable because it's usually attached with prepayment penalties, and that amount is usually pretty steep. So people usually opt for a short-term loan. But at the same time, you're also now at a crunch and you're paying higher interest rates. And the final consideration, wealth versus income. As I said in my theatric presentation, you really are riding off into the sunset with your bags of money. And only your bags of money. The fix and flip strategy is not an asset wealth generating strategy. That is to say, at the end of the day, you have liquid money and not an asset in your portfolio. So, in layman's terms of pros and cons, let's just list it out. Pros, cons. So, pro number 1, the time value of money. And money now is more valuable than money later. On to the con side, con number 1, the dependency of this strategy. Finding the perfect fix and flip home is not easy. And many people will only be able to find the perfect deal maybe once to a maximum of about 3 times in a year. It's not as stable an income source as almost any other real estate strategy out there. You really have to be patient and you can't jump the gun to just start investing in any old property for a fix and flip. Back to the pro side, the potential return on investment. You stand to generate a huge amount of profit in a very short space of time. Back over to the con side, this is a very cash-intensive strategy and also a labor-intensive strategy and also a you-intensive strategy. On the cash side, you remember how I mentioned how this strategy is all dependent on getting things done as quickly as possible. If you have to change out the wiring, repaint the home, add an extra floor, remove the tiling, remodel the property to make it more spacious, this all needs to be done as quickly as possible. Not when it's most convenient, as quickly as possible. Onto the final pro, there's no long-term asset management or risk. Once you sell the property, it's off your hands. Your job is to get it on the market, sell it, get your money, pay your tax on that money, and go. But a final con to this is the fact that You don't gain any asset wealth. You can't benefit from property appreciation. You can't benefit from tax benefits of having a property. And just that solid, tangible confidence that if all goes badly, you still have your property behind your back. There are a few other pros and cons to this strategy, but in order to find those, you're going to have to click on the link below and read my blog. Just got to make that whole ecosystem thrive, not just my YouTube channel, not just my blog, not just my website. Everything's going to be working. And finally, we're in the final stretch. It's time to cover the concluding factors. Who is this strategy actually for? Let's initially split it up into either being a driving strategy or a supplement strategy. Fix and flip strategy leans heavily towards being a supplement strategy. It's not a strategy that has a continuous cycle, but it's a strategy that has a start, stop relationship. Next point, we need to evaluate whether it's a novice-friendly strategy or leans more to being an advanced strategy for seasoned investors. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say the strategy does lean more to needing an experienced real estate investor. This strategy really does take you through the ringer of what you need to know in the real estate industry. You need to be able to identify a good wedge on getting a property. You also need to be able to identify the relevant renovations to do onto a property. You need to be able to source those renovations as well as do them in a rushed and timely manner. You also need to be able to identify market trends to know exactly how the renovations should go. All in all, the strategy relies on a lot of things that just need the eyes of an experienced real estate investor. But that's not to say novice real estate investors can't make use of the strategy. I would recommend, if you're going at this the first time, it's probably best you go about it through a dream team. You get a real estate broker who helps you identify wedge properties. You get a renovation company that helps you identify the great renovation opportunities for that property in that neighborhood at that time. Going through a dream team will help you exponentially increase your knowledge on all facets of real estate than you would normally if you went at it alone. It's like having your own mentors. And finally, to end this all off, let's just end it with a theoretical example as to what you can expect through this strategy. Let's go. So, boom, speed round. You go into the market to look for a viable fixed and flip property. It takes you 4 months to find a property that's viable and has potential to your specifications. The current owner is valuing the property on market for 600,000, but through your magical mighty wizard eyes, you personally value this property to have potential in the low 900,000 range with a lot of tough love, elbow grease, and a montage. You enter the negotiation table decked out fully to give your facts and earn your wedge, and you manage to bring the price down to 580, which brings the wedge total of financial and viable wedge to 320. You need to rock a down payment at 20% or 116k down, and you opt for a short-term loan at 1 year, which you get at a reasonable interest of 8%. So since you paid your down payment out of pocket to personal money, you're only paying interest on 464k at 8%. That's roughly 3k a month. Alright, you own the property, it's time to get renovating. You assemble your dream team and you roughly get your renovating budget to 80k. Cut out 2x rule, so your budget is actually more along the lines of 160k. It takes you 3 months to complete. Right, dream team phase 2, you get your brokers and your agent to push the property onto the market, and through some technical negotiation theories, we managed to get it slightly over your expected rate and we get a 965 valuation. Alright, so let's crunch the numbers. Property sale value, 965. Property purchase value, 580. Interest on that, 18. Remember, you're only paying interest on 464 because the 116 came out of your pocket. Renovation fees, started at 80, you doubled it up to 160. Commission for your boy for putting in all the work, 5%. Which leaves you with a bottom line figure of 159. Percentage-wise, we've got 159 over 806 for 20%. As well, you might want to factor in tax, closing tax, which, is about 25% because you're selling your property and under a year it's being taxed as income tax. Another negative, which you'd know if you went to my blog. If you did that, you'd end up with 119 over 806, which would give you about a 50% ROI. Or done in space of, drum roll please, 6 months. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. And we are done. Thank you for joining me on the start of this new series. Like and subscribe. Tell me if you liked it. Tell me what you want to see down the line. Next week will probably be the launch of a new series, but I'll definitely come back to this down the line. Anyway, I've been Ishe Jindu or Zinyati, and thank you for being here. Peace. Alright, I forgot. Smash the like button, explosion, and tap subscribe. Do it now. Have you done it? Now. Explosion.